Good morning. Welcome in. As everyone is joining us and getting settled, if you want to drop in the chat where exactly you're joining us from, and especially if we have any CEA members joining us today, we'll always love to know that. Give it another few moments. I think we have more people filing in. A second. All right, I want to be very cognizant of everyone's time. I know Jessica has some incredible information for us today. Oh, Monterey Bay Aquarium. I was just there 2 weeks ago. Had the most amazing time as usual. We have a membership, so shout out to Monterey Bay Aquarium for being awesome and focusing on conservation and so much education. My girls were exhausted. All right, so hi, everyone. Welcome to Bringing Wellness into the Workplace, sponsored by the Monterey County Workforce Development Board. My name is Anna Manzano. I am the digital media and event strategist here at California Employers Association. We are your hosts today. Before we begin today's webinar, I would just like to go over a couple of housekeeping details with you. Excuse me. Your audio will be muted throughout the presentation, but we always do ask for your participation anyway. If you have any questions pertaining to today's presentation, you can type them into the Q&A box at any time, and Jessica or I will try our best to address them as we go. Handouts for this presentation will be emailed shortly. I just had a couple more registrations come in, so I'm going to send that over to you right now. And that if you need them resent, if you don't get them by the end of the presentation, please go ahead and put your email in the chat box and I will resend them to you. Most importantly, we have a survey. Because your feedback is incredibly important to us. We have a, I promise you, 1 to 2 minute survey that we will give you the link for at the end of this webinar. And it really provides us with the valuable feedback that we utilize to constantly improve on our webinars and provide you with awesome resources. Speaking of awesome resources, today's webinar, again, is brought to you by the Monterey County Workforce Development Board. Today we have Jerry Hernandez, who is a management analyst there, to share more about these resources available to you. And Jerry, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Anna. I want to, first of all, thank you all for being here and welcoming you. The Monterey County Workforce Development Board Business Services Unit is structured to work with small businesses to help stabilize, strengthen, and work with you to grow your business. Here on the screen, you see 3 columns. The first one, we have recruitment resources. We have job and career fairs. We also have customized recruitments, which means particularly larger employers, we're able to work extensively with larger employers to do specialized recruitments. We have a Monterey County Workforce Development Job Board, and we have other promotional activities. Now, part of the process of helping a small business become stable and become strengthened is training your existing workforce. So we have an incumbent worker program available as well. And these are resources that we have available to us on the job training, and they offer version. The other resources include micro business grants, human resource hotlines, resource referrals, rapid response, and employee-employer downsizing. The calendar you see on your screen now shows the events that we sponsor with the California Workforce Development Board. Today, obviously, we're dealing with the subject bringing wellness into the workplace. But our next one in September is an in-person website presentation in Salinas. and it's entitled The Top 10 Ways to Stay Out of Court. And this comes out of the experience of the California Workforce Development Board and ways they've worked with the business community to keep them out of court. And so this would be particularly of interest to small businesses to make sure they are proactive in a way to do things that are preventative in nature. And there's a number of resources available. So we look forward and wanted to make you aware of that. So again, if you're interested, the next slide will also show you my contact information. If not, the information there, okay, it's my phone number is 831-755-5393, and my email, hernandezj1@co.monterey.ca.us. So now to get us into our presentation, we'll turn the stage back to Anna. Thank you, Anna.
Sure thing. Thank you. And definitely check out those resources. And I will go ahead and drop a link in the chat shortly with a link to our next, we have an on-site one coming up and we have a couple other ones through Monterey. So I will make sure that you guys have access to that. So finally, I would like to introduce our amazing speaker. Today we have Jessica Rivera, who is our training and coaching director here at California Employers Association. Jessica, it's all yours.
Thank you, Anna, and welcome everyone. We're glad that you're with us today, and hopefully you'll pick up some tips as you work in the workplace, either as a leader, as a teammate, a colleague, but we are excited to have you with us today. And one of the reasons that it's so important, this topic, and being able to look at wellness as something that is just as important as everything else in our lives, is because we look at people bringing their whole self to work, their authentic self, especially in today's world, and also being vulnerable, which is not considered a weakness. As you can see on the left, Dr. Brene Brown, who was one of the top 10 speakers for TED Talks, up to this point that they've had TED Talks, she's done a tremendous amount of work around this. And she talks about vulnerability not being a weakness. It's actually our greatest measure of courage, which means when we need something, we talk about it, we ask for it. And when we're under stress or we're dealing with situations, having that ability to really be able to articulate it, speak to someone about it. Also living your values. When we work in an organization that does not align with our values, our beliefs, the things that we believe are important, that causes stress also. And then also garnering trust. Trust is the foundation of any team in an organization. And if you don't have trust at that foundation, it's hard to have anything else. Things like accountability, responsibility, results, things of that nature, teamwork. So we're really thrilled that you're with us today. Just a little bit about California Employers Association. We do provide human resources services and solutions to employers throughout the state of California, and also to employers who have a presence here in California. I did see that we did have a member with us from Seattle, Washington, who joined us, who's calling in from Washington. So we provide services and solutions throughout California, and again, outside of California for those who have a presence here. Also, one of the things that our attorneys make us say is that we're not attorneys. We provide guidance, we provide recommendations. Yet if you ever find yourself in a situation where you do need an attorney for legal advice that's of significant legal issues for your company, we always recommend that you consult your own attorney. We are subject matter experts when it comes to human resources, and we are trainers and certified coaches. Yet again, if you find yourself in a situation where you do need legal advice, we always recommend you speak with your attorney. So our outline for today, a few things that we're going to be talking about today is the difference between stress and burnout. Some folks think they are very similar, yet they are truly different. We understand life is and has been stressful with global events the past 3 years, and being able to manage those stressors allow us to show up as our best selves at work and hopefully lead a successful team and have a well-balanced work-life situation, which is what we all strive for. Also, we'll talk about wellness and the importance of that and what it can mean to you, your team and your company. And for those of you who are leaders of a team on the line today, we do hear from some leaders, yes, we know about wellness, but what about our wellness too? So hopefully for leaders who have gone through a tremendous amount of change in the past few years, you'll find some tips for you also, because you are just as important as your team is, and how you feel tends to reflect how your team is feeling also. And then also we'll be talking about your work culture a bit too, a few things that perhaps you can do to make work more human. We hear a lot of talk about AI, artificial intelligence, and we work a lot with different types of technology, but we are still human beings. We aren't robots yet. So how do we make work more human? And then also cultivating those strategies to cultivate that wellness in your life and also for your company too. So the first thing I want to touch on is emotions versus logic. Deep down in our core, we have two primary emotions, love and or fear. Of course, all of the positive emotions come from love, the negative from fear. And then of course, all of our logical, rational, analytical, that the head of our conscious, that's also something that is so important to keep in mind, because when our emotions take hold of us, it's hard to get to the logical. Just like any of us have found that when we're talking with someone who's in a highly emotional state, you cannot get past, you cannot get to rational or logic until you work through those emotions. And getting present for us in that situation, any situation, allows us to choose how we're going to respond. So a question for you, and just something to reflect for yourself today. How are you feeling today? Many people may answer with a nicety, or maybe they actually tell us how they're really feeling. Here you'll see we have 10 emotions. But is that all we have? Actually, according to Dr. Brene Brown, who I quoted earlier about vulnerability, there are actually 87 emotions that we have at any given point in time, yet we only tend to identify the 10 that are showing here on the slide. So as you think about it for yourself, how you're feeling today, it informs you also as to your own environment and how and what you create in your own workplace. I'm going to take a look. Okay, I was just checking the chat real quick. I wanted to make sure no one had a question. So before we talk about wellness, let's talk about a few other things that are high on that list too. Things like stress, anxiety, burnout, and self-care. So the definition of stress. And don't get me wrong, some stress is good for us. Some stress propels us, compels us to do really good things, get things done when we're under a deadline. Yet in many cases, it can be the feeling of being overwhelmed or really struggling with some emotional pressure. And it is our body's response to that pressure. And things can happen in our lives. Life events can trigger stress, something unexpected. One of the things I hear a lot when I work with employers is that uncertainty that we feel we've been under for the past several years. That creates stress because we feel that we don't have control over everything, which of course in reality, we really don't have control over everything. And when we do have, when we're under stress in a negative way, our body feels it. Our body reacts to it. We can start sweating, we can be shaky, feel jittery. I'm sure some of you, when you've been under stress, you actually feel jittery and you're just not, your brain chemistry, you're in a fog, or you're confused, or you can't seem to put two rational thoughts together. Also, understanding that the production of stress hormones can increase, which can also impair how we're feeling. We can see an increase in our glucose levels, our heart rate, our blood flow to our muscles in our arms and legs, actually. And then, of course, when stress can be truly tough, that fight or flight response. And that's where we have to pay attention to this, because it can change our actual, our chemistry, our body chemistry. And it's important that we address it when it's happening or as soon as we can, because we want to make sure we can manage it for our own well-being, especially for those of you that are leading teams, because again, how you feel will show up in how you are leading your own team, and also how we feel as a teammate will also have an impact on the team that we work with. So here's some typical stressors, and it's important that we identify the ones that are truly bothering us. And all of these, many of us have been through all of these, some of these, and we know that it can be different for different individuals based on where we are in life. And also when we think about things like tight deadlines, for some people, that's how they live, that's how they enjoy working right to the end, getting something done. That's what deadlines are for in their minds. Other people want to have things done ahead of deadlines. And as you look at some of these other issues, these are typical stressors that we find both in our life and obviously in our work. And this is so important because the reason we're talking about stress is the fact that we don't want it to turn into burnout. People use these two words interchangeably, but the truth is they really are different. When we think about stress, that's more of an over-engagement. We feel pressured. We kick into hyperdrive. Our thoughts kind of run a little bit crazy. We may be irritable, physically affected that I talked about earlier. Yet, when we move to the burnout stage, that's where it can be extremely serious and cause a severe mental distress. We tend to disengage. Ambivalent. We don't see any hope, where that feeling of hopelessness happens. And when we allow that to get to the place of burnout, it can cause long-term results for someone. So being able to identify things within your team, within yourself, is extremely important, so that you don't have that situation where things go to that burnout stage. And sadly, in 2019, the World Health Organization did classify burnout as an occupational phenomenon. We are in an age of burnout, as they say. And because chronic stress can lead to that burnout, and it can impair our body chemistry, three dimensions that show up when we are in burnout: we have no energy, or we are always exhausted. And sometimes we find ourselves in that situation where we just can't do one other thing. And some questions to ask yourself is, are you working more but enjoying yourself less? Is a job that used to really fulfill you, is it now turning you off? And is your life leading you, or are you leading your life? So some questions to ask yourself as you take a look at, am I just dealing with everyday stress, or am I moving towards burnout? Another thing to think about is how you're feeling. Are you so exhausted but you can't sleep? And also, where's your sense of humor? Many times, again, when you get close to that burnout stage, or you are in the burnout stage, things that used to be fun, things that you used to find energy in, things that used to make you laugh, no longer seem to do that for you. Now, research has shown that several areas can create that burnout situation. And it can be things like your workload, too many meetings, extra work because of right sizing or reorganizations, or whatever we want to call it. All of our companies and businesses have gone through so many changes just in the past 3 years alone. And that whole piece of lack of control, that perception that we don't have control over our lives, over our work, we don't have that autonomy to make decisions. A big one that comes up too is lack of reward or recognition, not feeling valued or seen, and also relationships, that miscommunication or not communicating well at all and not being connected. We are finding, especially with our younger generations, our Generation Z, which is our youngest generation, surveys have shown us that they do need that connection. They are the ones that are more likely to want to be back into the workplace because they like that social interaction and they crave it, even more so than the other generations do. And then also lack of fairness or inconsistent treatment at work. If I continue to do all of this work, but no one's paying attention, or there's no recognition for it, or my teammate is not doing that kind of as much work as I am, but nothing's happening, that whole lack of fairness or that favoritism really tends to impact us also. And then I mentioned earlier too, the values mismatched. Many times people will find they may be working in an organization where either they don't understand or are misinterpreting the values of their organization. And that's where leadership is so important, to connect that line of sight to what an employee's contribution is to the company and why it's so important. So you don't have to experience all 6 of these to have burnout, but these are some of the factors. Even 1 or 2 can be damaging to our overall well-being. So when we think about burnout in 2023, and this was a recent state of the workplace burnout survey that was done by Infinite Potential, we see cynicism is now being added to the whole list of things where we're showing those dimensions of burnout. And as you can see, when we look at how it's being measured, where they're having those high levels, we're seeing that it's continuing to increase. It's not going down, it's continuing to increase. And that's important to recognize because the fact that, we may think about some of the global events that have happened and they're over or they're almost over. People are still dealing with other issues that are going on in our world, in their lives, that are really having an impact on them. And it's important also to know that managers experience burnout at the same level as non-managers. Also, those who are caring for others at home, either children, elderly parents, they experience the same rate of burnout as those who don't. So it's pretty universal. It can be in any situation, any area, and being aware that it's continuing to increase, it's not decreasing, and just looking at the difference between 2020 and 2022, a significant increase. So here's some demographic trends in burnout. And these are important because many of us are bringing our younger workers into the workplace. And what's important about this is we're seeing that the highest rate of burnout currently is in the age group of 18 to 24, which is for the most part our Generation Z employees. And normally these folks are coming in at entry level, junior roles. And one of the assumptions based on the cause of this burnout is the fact that one of the top stressors for them could be financial insecurities brought on by some of the high inflation we've seen, some of the stagnant wages we've seen. And are their jobs providing enough variety for them, or are they doing the same thing day in, day out? Are they being given the opportunity to learn and grow? Are we as employers having conversations, ongoing conversations with them about their progress at the company? So one of the recommendations that we provide to employers is having those conversations, especially with our younger workers. They like to be coached. They've told us they want to be coached frequently. They want to know how they're doing. They want to know what their career path might be with the company. They want to have that sense of hope in their future. And if you do have people who are in those jobs where they are doing basically the same thing every day, what can we as leaders do to increase some of the variety of the work that they do, challenge them so they feel that they are working towards something bigger than what their current role is? Also, some warning signs of burnout, and these are things for all of us to be aware of that you want to be on the lookout for too. Of course, there's the physical piece, right? Things that I talked about before, how it shows up for us. Also, the psychological warning signs that show up too with burnout, and the behavioral. And these are the ones more than likely that you're going to see ahead of time before you'll be aware of other things. And looking at these issues and having those conversations and making sure that as leaders, as employers, as colleagues, are we paying attention to that? Because empathy, which for leaders, which is considered one of the most important skills that we can have in today's world and today's environment, is that ability to see things from that other person's point of view. So being able to have that conversation, hopefully you have trust with your employees, and sharing with them some of your observations that you've seen, that you're seeing a drop in their quality or a drop in their productivity, the results that they deliver. Also that maybe they're calling in sick or coming in late, or you're finding that they're not engaging with your team like they used to. And so as part of the work that we want to do as leaders is pay attention to that. And we have such an impact on our teams as leaders that we can be that one piece that makes that difference for an employee. And let's face it, we're all human. We all go through these types of situations in our lives at any given point in time. So being able to work with your folks to work through that will hopefully you'll keep your good employees and get them back to the place where they need to be, where they're engaged and they feel really good about the work that they do for you and for your company. So here are some of the negative impacts of burnout. And if you're thinking about, gosh, is there something we can do at our company to increase wellness, not just for our employees, but for ourselves as leaders, here are some good reasons to truly look at that, because it can make a big difference. We think about absenteeism, 63% more likely to take a sick day. We know when people take sick days, it impacts customer service, it impacts the workload, it impacts so many things in the workplace. We have 50% are less likely to discuss how to approach performance goals with their manager. They're not communicating with you. They're not being transparent with you. And you're probably sensing that that can be one of those impacts if they are burned out. Also, sadly, health-wise, back to the physical and the mental, 23% more likely to visit the emergency room. And then this is a big one because we've heard so many terms in the past 3 years, one of them, the Great Resignation, with so many people voluntarily leaving the workforce, which, by the way, the term, according to experts, Great Resignation, it is officially over as of April of 2023. We're still seeing some turnover, but not to the extent we've been seeing in the past few years. But the key here is that they're more than 2.5 times more likely to be looking for another job. And people are still looking. They are looking for other opportunities. The market has slowed down a bit, less new jobs this past month, yet people are still saying we are looking for other opportunities if we can't get what we need at our current workplace. So understanding that and being able to act on it for your employees is so important. According to Gallup, they say 76% of their employees, 76% of employees as a rule, experience burnout on the job at least sometimes. So again, we're all human. We all experience it. We all go through life situations, work situations. And now more than ever, as leaders, we have to pay attention to this for them and for ourselves. So a question for you as a leader, how are you showing up at work? How are you feeling these days? As I mentioned earlier, when I asked how you were doing today and you were thinking about that, how do you feel you're showing up? Are you managing your emotions in a way that you feel like you've got a pretty good handle on it? And do you help your own teammates, your direct reports, manage their emotions? And as you think about this, and we think about the spillover effect, it's how you show up with any emotions, because maybe you may have had a bad ride into the office and you yelled at a driver who cut you off and you're already coming into the office a little annoyed with that driver. It has that spillover effect. Or as we've all experienced at one time or another, perhaps we have something happen in our personal life and it's still festering, it's still bothering us when we come into the office, and it spills over into the office too. Or maybe we have a morning meeting, early morning meeting, where we are feeling stressed and we let that carry through for the rest of the day. So as a leader, are you showing up as stressed or burned out, or are you showing up as your best self? Because however you show up is going to affect your team, your teammates, and it will affect the overall culture of the company. So asking yourself that is important every day as you walk in. I always refer to that one comment that Oprah made years and years ago, Oprah Winfrey, where she says that we are responsible for the energy we bring into a room or a situation, and asking ourselves, are we managing our emotions in such a way that the energy we're bringing into a situation or into work is one that's going to lift and increase the energy, or is it going to detract from the energy within that organization? So asking yourself that question and checking yourself. We train in this stuff, and we all have to check ourselves sometimes and ask ourselves, are we bringing our best self to work? So some things to consider as you manage your stress and your emotions. Acknowledge your triggers. Know what triggers you. There's so much work around emotional intelligence right now, and a lot of surveys that one can take around emotional intelligence. And just by knowing what your triggers are and working through those before they actually happen to you, allows you to be able to respond versus react to certain situations, or not even respond at all and just move on. Awareness is half the battle. Being able to name your emotions. Remember, I mentioned there were 87 emotions, but being able to name what that emotion is. And it can be something as simple as saying, yeah, this is one of those triggers for me, and it's not going to get me this time. Choosing logic over emotions. And I know that is really, really hard to do, because when we're in an emotional state, we tend to go right to that emotional state and we have to clear our head. But stopping and saying, I've done this before, I can handle this, this too shall pass, but choosing that logic over the emotion so you don't get triggered and you don't say something or do something that you'll regret later. Not taking things personally. I know that's easier said than done. And I've heard this, and there was a time that used to really trigger me. And one of the best pieces of advice that we can offer is thinking about those situations where things will come up. For example, someone's giving us feedback on something, and maybe they haven't really been trained on how to give you feedback, and they're not doing it in the best possible way. Going back to the original intent, feedback is usually meant when people have an interest in your growth and they want you to do better. And when we take it personal and think, gosh, they're just picking on me, or they never tell me anything good, that's one way that you may get yourself to a react mode. Versus if you take a moment and say, they're offering me this feedback because they do want me to do better in the future, creating that mindset, that thanking people for that feedback and knowing it's for your future development, and creating that Teflon skin, as I say, in some situations, and even saying, you're not going to hurt my feelings, tell me how I did, or please give me this feedback, but also recognizing in yourself, what is it that you need to do so you don't let any kind of situation take you straight to emotions and away from logic. Stopping that negative spin. It's been said that women tend to ruminate more about things than men do. We tend to let things just swirl in our minds and our minds and our minds over and over again. We need to stop that negative spin and say to ourselves, enough, let's let that go and let's move forward. And then, of course, a piece that will help you with that is focusing on the solution, not the problem. Too many times people will stay in blame, or they'll stay in a problem and not move towards a solution. And bottom line is, it doesn't matter who's wrong or right, it's what's right and what do we need to do to fix this. So focusing on that solution will help to minimize that stress, because you're working towards resolution versus staying stuck in blame, or who did this, or why did this happen. Moving forward can make all the difference in the world. So when we are experiencing stress and anxiety, as I mentioned, it can be caused by an external trigger, like a work deadline, a fight with someone, or just for whatever reason, being able to get something done. When it hits you, say it out loud. You take away its power when you say it out loud, because as you take a look at some of these bullets here, yeah, I am feeling stressed right now. It's not new. I can handle it. I've done it before. We are all experienced in doing this. One of the most powerful ones is, what's the worst that can happen? Sometimes we get ourselves so worked up about, I may not meet this deadline, or this may not happen exactly as it should. Yet in reality, what's the worst that's going to happen? Well, I may have to ask for an extension, or maybe it's going to just take a little bit longer, or it may be a little bit different. But asking yourself that question, can I live with the worst that's going to happen? Then you can continue to move forward. And then, of course, that self-talk. This is so important, to put ourselves in that right space mentally. I will get through this. Things will work out. Folks, we've all lived. We've all experienced things. We have all weathered things that have helped us to succeed in our lives. And many times we have to do our own self-talk and repeat it until we feel calmer, and reminding ourselves, we've been here before. We've resolved this before. We've been able to get through this before. And sometimes we forget to do that for ourselves and acknowledge, we've been there, we've done that, we will do it again. Another way to avoid reacting versus responding to a situation is to do your best to relax, mentally assess the situation, and breathe. Breathing is always so important when we are under stress. Many times we will find ourselves short on breath when we're under stress. So making sure that we pay attention to our breathing and do that in a way. And sometimes the deep breaths will calm us down to a place where we can start thinking and moving from the emotional to the rational. Evaluate what's happening. How am I feeling? Where am I feeling it? What's going on with me right now? So just acknowledging to yourself, this is what's happening within myself right now. And what are those things that I can do to alleviate it as soon as possible, to move towards a resolution of what I'm experiencing. And then, of course, your intentions. What do you want the outcome to be, and how do you want it to be? One of the things that can be so powerful is just preparing for things that may happen. Maybe you're going into a situation where you're going to deliver a performance review to one of your employees, and perhaps there are going to be, it shouldn't be a surprise, but there are going to be some things that are probably going to be a little bit difficult to discuss with that employee if they don't show improvement. So setting that intention for yourself ahead of time. My intention is for this employee to be able to be successful. I'll provide training as they need it. I want the best for them. Setting that intention will definitely make a difference in how you approach that with that employee. So if they become defensive or they get upset with you, you can go back to, my intention for you is for you to succeed here. I want the best for you. And in order for you to continue to progress, here's what we need to do. And I know you can do it because you've done it before. So setting that intention in whatever situation you know has potential for stress, or even when you find yourself in a situation where maybe something unexpected happens. And then, of course, taking action. It's been said that even taking the smallest step forward can go a long way in alleviating some of the stress. And sometimes taking action is deciding not to take action, but making that decision, moving mindfully forward, choosing what I'm going to say, what I'm going to do, with the intent, I know what I want my outcome to be. For example, with the employee, with the performance review, I want us to walk out aligned, and my employee understanding what they need to do to be successful, where they need to focus. So setting that mindset, setting that intention, and then working towards that through our words and through our actions. So I've talked a lot about stress. I've talked a lot about burnout. I've talked about some things that we can do. If you have any questions as I'm going through the remainder of our discussion today, please feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A, Anna or I will look at them. So let's move to wellness. What is wellness? And what does that feel like? What does that look like? Some people think of meditation, they think of yoga, they think of healthy eating. It's not a passive state. Wellness is not a passive state or a one-time state of being, But it is a lifelong practice that takes work and takes intentional actions and choices. And secondly, it's something that we have to do on our own. We have to commit to, I want to be in my best well-being state that I can be. And part of this is doing more of what we love to do and things that bring us joy. And so when we think about wellness for the definition here, it's being actively engaged in those attitudes, those actions, behaviors that really do enhance the quality of my life. And there are several dimensions within the wellness wheel that I'll talk about in just a moment, but making sure that I have that balance in my life and I'm not neglecting one for something else or solely focusing on one to the detriment of everything else. So here's an emotional wellness wheel that was put together by the University of Nevada, and it's got 7 dimensions here that are all interconnected. They all combine together for an overall balance of well-being. And as you can see, we have occupational, our career, our work, our school training, our interest, our abilities. It's got spiritual, our values, our intuition, our character, intellectual, those things that our memory, our preparation, our imagination, our strategic abilities, physical, our health, our nutrition, our sleep, which is so important, our energy levels, our fitness. It also has the emotional, which is our personality, our stress management, our joy in our lives, of course, our environmental, which is the community service, the world that we live in. Do we like the community we live in? Do we enjoy being part of our community? Do we contribute to our community through our recycling, our choices that we make in our lives? And then, of course, the social piece of this. And what's so important about this too is this ties into all of our relationships, both at work, at home, outside of work, our organizations we belong to, our communications that we have with those that are important to us. So you'll have this in your handout. When we send, if Anna, as she mentioned, she would send this to you, create your own chart and do it as many times or as few times as you'd like, but ask yourself this question: am I in balance? Am I, when I rate myself on this wellness wheel, this wheel of life, if you will, am I doing it in such a way, is my life going in the direction I want it to go? Am I spending so much time with my career that my relationships, my family, my growth, my fun, my joy, is it suffering? And there's nothing wrong with work when at times you have to devote so much attention to it. We've all been there when we're working on a project, we're working on something that is a big change in our organization, yet it shouldn't be the norm. It should be the exception. It should not be the norm. So paying attention to this for yourself and asking your own team about this too and how they're doing. But asking yourself this is so important for your own well-being as a teammate and as a leader in your organization. Self-care does improve wellness, and it does all of these things for you. So making sure that you're asking yourself, am I eating well? Am I sleeping? Am I doing all the things I need to do to take care of my health? Because you want to be at your best, both mentally and physically at work. And here's some just self-care tips and tricks for you. Some of these things here are self-explanatory. You know, we all probably need to be walking more often, the 10,000 steps, as they say. We need to take a break, walk away from something, sit outside and eat lunch. You know, go catch a movie in the afternoon and then come back and finish up your work. Meditating it can be very powerful and calming for people. Singing out loud, for those of you that like to sing in the shower if you don't want anyone to hear you, but sing out loud, have some fun, dance, laugh, find those opportunities where you can laugh. That releases so much for us when we're able to laugh, and we feel better. We always feel so much better when we've had a good laugh. Setting boundaries and making sure that we are able to control our time as much as we can. And yes, finding those opportunities once in a while to vent if we need to. And then lastly, knowing when to let it go, to drop it and let it go, because sometimes we'll hang on to things over and over. And as I mentioned, ruminating about it, spinning about it, and we never get past go because we're not letting things go, and we need to move forward. We can't saw sawdust. We can't change something that's already happened. All we can do is move forward and make the best of the situation to the best of our abilities. Setting boundaries, this is important. When you think about boundaries for work, productive work boundaries, and keeping in mind that boundaries are different than barriers. Barriers are about avoiding problems, walling off communications, not fulfilling my responsibilities. Yet boundaries are for making responsibilities and agreements clear. And this is so important because it'll help you take more control and more responsibility to do what you need to do. And then also, you want people to respect your boundaries. They have to understand what you're working on, and that you do care about them, but that in order to get everything done, there has to be, things where you may have to close your door to get some things done because you're trying to solve a problem and you can't be interrupted. Every time we're interrupted, it takes us between 15 and 30 minutes to get back to what we were working on. And that's been shown time and time again. And setting healthy boundaries for yourself so that you can do the things that you need to do, and making those agreements for the team's greater good. And then, of course, also looking at long term. When you frame your boundaries based on the big picture, long term, you're not playing the short game, you're playing the long game. There are things that you can do and that you need to do to be able to get your work done, and also things that you're not willing to cross that line. So when you have your own boundaries and you've set up those productive work boundaries, it can lead to confidence, emotional stability, and of course, reduced anxiety, because it gives you a sense of control. And again, it's not a bad thing to have boundaries. We teach people how to treat us, and making sure that we do everything we can to get our jobs done, treat our people well, and feel good about ourselves at the end of the day. So again, different than a barrier. Boundaries are about giving you a little bit of control so that you can be as effective as you can, and have healthy relationships and healthy personal boundaries so that you feel that you do have that sense of control. This is one of the biggest ones, and I cannot say this enough. The ability to say no can make a world of difference in your life. More often than not, we overcommit because we can't say no. I can't even tell you how many people have said that they are so frustrated, they have so much on their plate, but yet they've agreed to do so many things, and they don't know how to say no. They don't think they can say no. They don't want to hurt someone's feelings. So as we think about that ability to say no for ourselves, here are some ways to do it. And I promise you, the more you do this when you need to, so that you can get the important things done, keep the main thing, it gets easier. And you don't have to go into a lot of explanations as to why, but when you want to say yes, but you really need to say no, here are some things that you can say to that other party, and you don't have to go into a litany of reasons why you can't do something. The more confident you can be when you say, I wish I could make it work, or unfortunately, this is not a good time. And one of the ones that I really like is, I wish there were two of me. I just can't right now. That's all you have to say. People will understand it. You will be able to do it with more confidence the more that you're able to do it. Don't put yourself in that situation where you keep saying yes, and then you're paying the price with stress, and then heaven forbid you go into burnout. We don't want that to happen to you. And then also happiness. What is happiness? And it really does come down to one question, according to some experts, is, am I doing the work I want to do? And asking yourself, how do your people feel about their work too? Does it matter? Do we let them know this is how important you are to our company? Do you see your contribution to your value to your organization? Do my contributions help me achieve something important? Some of our roles that we do really make a difference in the lives of others. We provide needed items, services, solutions, and do I love what I do? And making sure that you put your people people in those right roles so that they can do their best work. Because if they are playing to what their strengths are and they're able to do those things that they love to do, that they're good at, that makes a world of difference, that they know that they're making that difference for the company. And even Harvard Business Review concluded that to be fully engaged and happy, people need to know that their contributions matter towards that bigger picture, that bigger goal. So purpose in their role will lead to engagement, will lead to overall improved work culture. And even asking your people these questions too. Do they see how their contributions make the difference? Rethinking your work culture. I mentioned first, we are human beings first, employees second. And we need to make sure that as we look at our work culture, do people feel they belong to the work culture? When they belong to their business, when they belong to a culture, they feel that they don't have to change themselves to belong. When I have to fit into something, I need to usually change something about myself to fit in. So making sure people know that we honor their experience, their knowledge, their education, all that they bring to the workplace, and allowing them to be heard and seen and respected and recognized, making sure we're including people. When we think about inclusion, it's not just being invited to the party, it's being asked to dance. Finding those opportunities for all of your employees to participate. And of course, just as importantly, it results in that connectedness and belonging, and it cultivates trust. Yes, Audrey, a question was asked, can the Wheel of Life PDF be shared? Yes, we will be sharing that with you. Thank you for that question. And when we think about bringing humanity into the workplace, here are some things to ask yourself. How are we doing in our own workplace? Do we have recognition programs? Do we have those programs where we have opportunities to not only recognize our employees, our leaders, but also allowing people to recognize each other on a team? It's been said that team recognition to an employee is even more important than when their supervisor recognizes them, because they're working hand in hand with their teammates. Are there recognition programs in place at your company? And it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. Do you have an ability to create something to let people know how much they matter? According to Gallup, people need to be recognized every 7 days, not with something tangible necessarily, something that's even a thank you. I noticed that I just saw your work product on this project. It was outstanding. Great work. Thank you. I appreciate all the time and detail you put into that. Sometimes it's a matter of just paying attention and looking for those opportunities to let people know that you know what they're doing and that you value it and you appreciate it. Personal and professional development. Do your folks have an opportunity to continue to grow and learn at your company? Even if you can't promote them to that next level yet, do they have that opportunity to grow where they're planted, to learn those skills so when something does come up, they are ready for it? Celebrating milestones, anniversaries, birthdays. One thing that our CEO does that I think is extremely valuable for all of us as employees is on our work anniversary, she actually creates a personal email to us. She shares it with the whole team, but she highlights all the things that we've contributed in the past year and to the organization. And I can assure you that many people in our company have kept every single one of those emails because they mean so much and it's acknowledged by the top person at our company. I talked about empathy, demonstrating empathy to your folks. And of course, a sense of humor. I'm a firm believer life is too short not to have fun. We have to find those opportunities to laugh and to share laughter amongst ourselves. Because in reality, when people are feeling good and that energy is good, they're engaged. They want to do more for the company. They want to do their best for customers, for clients, and for their overall team. So some things to think about in making work human. And there's a great book called Making Work Human by Eric Mosley. Derek, and he talks about the 3 pillars of making work human. So thanking, turning gratitude, showing our gratitude, turning it into action, living in that environment of gratitude. What are we grateful for in our workplace? What do we have? What are the good things? How can we focus more on that? Talking about the culture, creating the culture of having transparency in our communications, our meaning of our work, the good things that we do, having those discussions, even asking people. One of our leaders always says, so what went well this year? Or what went well this week or this month? Listing all the things that went great. What are those yucky things that maybe we want to work on to make them better? Talking about those too, but having the conversations, whether you're remote, hybrid, on-site, or a variation of all, finding those opportunities and celebrating how we share those things in our lives with each other. And it can be anything. It can be something that happened in someone's personal life, an accomplishment or something at work, but celebrating those opportunities when they come up with each other. And then, of course, the benefits of doing this, we all want to keep our good employees, and we want to attract high performing employees also. So it's better retention. We keep our good people, better performance, innovation. We want people in our company to be thinking about what else can we do better? How can we do things better? Be creative. Of course, we want our customers to always stay with us. And bottom line for all of us, we want our company to be successful. So moving forward, for all of you, what is one step that you will take for your own well-being and your own self-care after today? And what's one step that you might take in your workplace to bring more humanity and wellness into the workplace for your company? If you are a leader of a team, please know that you are a huge part of how your employees feel. People will leave their leaders. They don't always leave companies. You have a tremendous impact on the folks that you're privileged to lead. So what might you do, and what can you introduce into your workplace to make things even better? And with that in mind, any questions at all that you might have that I could answer for you, anything at all, feel free to put it in the Q&A or the chat. Happy to answer anything at all. And as you think about that and reflect upon that, we'll be with you until the very end. So I am going to turn it back over to Anna, and she will give us our HRCI and our SHRM codes and wrap it up for us.
All right, Jessica, always bringing all the knowledge and expertise for us. Okay, so one quick thing of housekeeping, I did put it in the chat. The PDF should be in your email inbox. If you did not receive it, please reach out to me, manzano@employers.org or CEAinfo@employers.org. We'll get that right over to you as soon as we possibly can. Today's HRCI and SHRM codes, I'm going to drop them in the chat as well for easy copying. In case you're watching the recording and do not have access to the chat transcript, your HRCI is 625996. SHRM code is 23- bunch of letters here. S as in Sam, Z as in zebra, G as in good, N as in Nancy, H as in hello. Forgive me for not knowing all the official codes there, but hopefully you got that. Lastly, I am also dropping one last thing in the chat here. As you can see on the screen, we have a very brief survey. Literally, it takes 2 or 3 minutes max. And this, as I mentioned in the beginning, does allow us to continue to provide you with incredible resources to help run your company or your HR department with ease and peace of mind. If you can please take a few minutes to provide us with your feedback, that will be very, very valuable. And that's it. So thank you for joining us today. We really hope that you found this presentation helpful. And to find out about some upcoming webinars and forums, please visit our website at employers.org. We do have that upcoming Monterey on-site training. It's a very popular training, the top 10 ways to stay out of court. It's very entertaining, but also very informative. So be sure to check that out. And thank you again. Thank you to Jerry and the whole Monterey team for sponsoring today. Thank you, Jessica, for your expertise. And thank you all for attending. Enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers.
Thank you.